It's week 14 of the fantasy football season. That means the playoffs are here for most of you. Which running backs do you trust and who should you avoid? We're going to tell you in our start sit. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button, catch all our latest videos as soon as they come out. All right, Chris, give me your first running back that you feel is a must start.
Well, I'm going back to the well. I went to him last week. No reason to get off him this week, and that's David Montgomery. The last 2 weeks, we've seen he's been an absolute beast in two very soft matchups against Green Bay and Detroit. And guess what? He gets another very soft matchup against Houston. Houston allowing the second most yards per game in the entire NFL on the ground, second most yards per game. And if that's not enough, the fourth most touchdowns. We saw last week against Detroit. He doubled his touchdown total in one game. I expect him to find the end zone again this week. And if you've been starting David Montgomery all year, waiting for this moment, it's here. It's his time. Get him back in your lineup with confidence.
You guys checked out other videos as far as playoff flex heroes, guys who you must start, some sleepers there as far as rest of the season, weeks 14, 15, 16. Dave Montgomery, he was on there. He's a guy you definitely want to lock in this week, but also the next couple of weeks. All right, so my first must start of this week is a guy that I don't think I've mentioned yet this year, Kenyon Drake. You know, it's been interesting season for him. He was kind of terrible at the beginning of the year. Chase Edmonds looked like the guy to have in Arizona if you're looking for a running back. You know, the Drake got hurt. Ever since he came back, it's been like he's a different guy. It seems like the Cardinals are bent on getting him the ball as much as possible, especially in the red zone, and that's what matters. So obviously a lot of touchdown upside we've seen in this offense, but also the matchup. You think, well, the Giants, their defense has been really good. They are actually sort of a reverse funnel defense in the sense that they are really tough against the pass, but they're 23rd against running backs in terms of fantasy points allowed. I feel like Drake is going to get the touches. He's going to have the opportunity. I feel like he's a pretty good start. I have him as a top 20 running back, which means pretty much a must start.
Yeah, Montgomery and Drake, two of the most frustrating running backs all season long, now both poised to win you your week 14, your first playoff matchup. Fantasy football is a crazy game for sure. And then my next must start, Jonathan Taylor going against the Raiders. Kind of had a little semi breakout last week. Didn't get, workhorse type carries, but got enough carries and got some work in the passing game, which was nice. The Raiders, terrible defense against running backs. They allow 121 yards per game on the ground and 19 touchdowns, which is second only to Detroit. So even though he's not quite a workhorse yet, again, his involvement in the passing game and enough work in the running game should give him plenty of upside in this one. And kind of like Montgomery and even Drake, he has tons of touchdown upside. Go ahead and roll him out this week.
Absolutely. Now, we got a ton of questions. Those of you who watch us on Sunday mornings in game live, 2 hours before kickoff, and a lot of them involve Jonathan Taylor. And I think as much as possible, we advise you put him in your lineup and start him. And he definitely paid off for most of you. The same goes for this week. In fact, matchup might be even better. So definitely ride Taylor. I'm going to go with a Dolphin, and it's going to be Myles Gaskin because, well, he is the guy once again. After a couple weeks on IR, we saw what happened. He got all of the touches pretty much in that backfield. Now, I know the concern might be that, well, it was a nice matchup last week. This time they get Kansas City, not so good for run games because, well, there's a good chance the Dolphins will be losing in this game. I'm just going to come out and say that. But here's the good thing is that Myles Gaskin is the only running back in this backfield who's going to get touches. That includes receiving yards and receptions. So in PPR, he still has a high floor. He had 51 receiving yards last week. I feel like Gaskin has some touchdown upside too. So there's not a whole lot of running backs that I feel as safe with, honestly, at that RB2 range. And Gaskin is a guy that you don't really need to worry about.
Yeah, it was great to see Gaskin come back and just immediately go into his pretty much every down role. So nothing to worry about going forward. And I agree that KC much better against the pass than the run. Certainly touchdown upside. My final must start does not have touchdown upside, but he's got tons of PPR upside, and that's J.D. McKissic because unfortunately last week Antonio Gibson left early with what they are calling a painful turf toe injury. Yeah, okay, turf toe is always painful, but here's the thing. They said he's doubtful for this week. He's not playing this week. Nobody plays the week after suffering a turf toe injury. Even his week 15 is probably in doubt. But looking at this week, week 14, J.D. McKissic last week had 10 catches for 70 yards with Gibson off the field. We've seen it earlier in the year. Alex Smith loves to dump it off to J.D. McKissic, and he had been kind of, losing routes, losing snaps to Antonio Gibson. Well, that won't be a problem anymore because the only other running back they really have is Peyton Barber, and he doesn't catch passes. So this isn't a guy you want to start in a standard scoring league, but in the PPR league, J.D. McKissic has tons of upside. He should easily get 10 plus targets in this one. So if you got him in PPR, you start him.
Absolutely. And also, San Francisco getting some pieces back like Richard Sherman. That defense is still pretty good. Obviously, it's not what it was last year, but good chance they locked down the receivers, including Terry McLaurin. So with no running game, really, and probably having a tough time passing, Smith is going to check it down. Like you said, he's done it all year, really. And then my last must start, I had to roll with this guy at some point. Cam Akers, I have no reservations. I know I've been saying this for a while, but you've got to roll with him. He is the RB1 clearly for the Rams now. Clearly because, again, 21 touches, Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown, only, 3 apiece? And again, the Patriots, obviously a great pass defense. They're just middle of the road against the run. So I've got to think that the Rams are going to try to do what they've been doing and dedicate the ground game to him. He's going to get the opportunities, and he's always one play away from taking it to the house. So I feel like with that kind of upside, unless you're really stacked at running back, which you probably aren't, then you got to have Akers in your lineup.
Yeah, and one thing in favor for Akers going against Patriots is they really struggle against zone running schemes, and that's pretty much all the Rams do. So even though it might not look like the greatest matchup on paper, I think this is actually a really good matchup for Akers, and I think he's going to have a big game.
All right, great. And I hope so, because I got plenty of shares there. All right, so those are guys we love. Let's talk about guys that we're going to fade. Let's get to our must-sits, if possible. So, Chris, who you got first?
I got to start with David Johnson. Activated off IR last week, came in and got a whopping 10 carries. 10 carries for David Johnson. Not going to get it done. Now he's got to play Chicago, and Chicago, a tough defense. But there's a couple things about Chicago. Number one, they've only allowed 9 touchdowns all year to running back. So David Johnson's been one of those guys, kind of touchdown dependent. Not a good chance for him to score a touchdown in this one. The other thing against David Johnson is Chicago has not been very good against the pass lately. They've been much better against the run than the pass lately. I'm going to actually talk a little foreshadowing because we're going to talk about this on the wide receiver start sit. But I think Houston is just going to throw the ball a bunch, and we're going to see another game where David Johnson only touches the ball 10 to 12 times. And against this defense in this matchup, that's not enough to get it done. You've got to bench him.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the ceiling is kind of limited here. I know it's hard to believe that I'm calling him a must sit, especially because last week thought it was a must start, but Austin Ekeler definitely took a step back last week. This whole Chargers team, honestly, is just kind of, I feel like it's on the verge of being a dumpster fire. I don't think they're Jets level yet, but I mean, it's just getting worse and worse each week. Going against Atlanta, another kind of shift in thinking. We used to think terrible defense, end of story. You play against them. They've been better under Raheem Morris, but also if you look specifically against running backs who catch the ball, they've allowed the fewest receiving yards to running backs ever since Morris took over. Okay, so that's something that matters because Ekeler isn't going to make his hay on the ground. It's going to be through the air. So if you look specifically, they actually have a pretty good linebacker core. And if they are vulnerable, it's against the pass. It's their cornerbacks. I don't know if that's going to matter to the Chargers. I don't know if it matters at all anymore after they got trounced last week, but I can't trust Ekeler.
Yeah, I don't know what has happened to the Chargers and to some extent Justin Herbert. I've heard different things like he's under more pressure. Defenses are figuring him out, but something has happened to that offense, and it's not a good something, right? I mean, we're talking about big time step back. So I agree with you there. And then my last must sit is a guy that for the last few weeks I've been saying, no, you got to keep rolling him out. You got to keep rolling him out. And that's Kareem Hunt. And he's been disappointing. And I'm finally off Kareem Hunt. So over the last 2 weeks, he's only had 10 and 13 carries. We're talking about a Ravens team that's only allowed 8 touchdowns on the year, fewest in the NFL. But they stuffed Zeke 3 straight times at the goal line. And then finally Dalton passed for the touchdown. And Kareem Hunt, really, since Chubb has come back, has been making his living, getting the goal line carries, getting the touchdowns. I don't think that happens this week. And without those touchdowns and only getting 10, 11, 12 carries against this tough defense, I don't think it's going to be enough for Kareem Hunt. I know he's a guy that's tough to sit, but I think this week you got to do it.
Yeah, and come out and take responsibility for the fact that I think last week we're telling, Kareem Hunt's one of those guys you kind of just don't bench unless you absolutely need to because you have a great option behind him. Not a must start anymore. And then my last one's going to be a pretty simple one. Miles Sanders, and thought he was going to he should have actually broken out last week. Green Bay's run defense, not too good, but Philadelphia's offense apparently worse. Carson Wentz has been benched. And so maybe they'll do better with Jalen Hurts at quarterback, but guess what they're also going to do? He's going to run the ball himself more. He's going to run the ball near the goal line more. It's going to be sort of like a Cam Newton situation where the running back ceiling is lower because you have a running quarterback. And we don't know that Jalen Hurts is going to be the answer. I mean, yeah, he did some things, but he also got sacked 3 times, threw an interception just in limited time. So against one of the toughest run defense, allowing the fewest fantasy points per game to running backs, and he struggled the last couple of weeks, and you have a running quarterback now who's a rookie. No thanks. I am not taking any chance with Miles Sanders, at least this week.
Yeah, and it was already frustrating because, you had to deal with Boston Scott getting some action, Corey Clement getting some action. But last week we saw quite a bit of Jordan Howard in the mix. So now we're talking about a 4-man RBBC. You got to avoid this entire situation. It's unfortunate because Sanders is a good player, but it is what it is. And I agree, you got to start benching him.
Yeah, and that's why, we talk about who to start, who to see each week. It's not a no-brainer, and especially in the playoffs, you have to win. You got to make the right decision. Don't just go with who brought you here because this week it might be a total reverse situation. So hopefully that advice helped, guys. We have obviously wide receivers and quarterback and tight end that we talk about each and every week. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, catch all our videos as soon as they come out, and watch our latest video right now. Thanks for watching and good luck.